Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Yes, it's me, Egbert. As the new owner of this station, I want to make sure we have the best talent on the air. That's why I've decided to ban all real estate agents and only have real talkers like Brad and John. Here they are, B and J.
John, what do you think of that one?
Is that, if that was on Twitter or X today, we would call that a subtweet. Like, I feel like there's somebody who was in mind when that was created, but I just can't put a thick thumb on it. You know what I mean? Are we going to talk about how the sun doesn't rise without us, Brad? Can we steal that?
No, we're not going to do that. Okay, here's what we're going to talk about. Okay, I'm listening to, and once again, I'm a self-admitted radio addict. I listened to radio, and once again, my career for a long part of it was in music radio. And even to the point where when I was still working music radio shifts, to decompress, I used to listen to talk radio, listen to KMOX and a bunch of different stuff. I listened to, on an average day, I probably listened to 8 to 10 radio stations. I'm bouncing around, okay? There's certain shows that I really like, and I have to admit, I've become a Mark Reardon fan. Mark Reardon did the afternoon shift on KMOX, and then they swapped him and what's his name? Dave Glover. And at first, I was like, I don't know. Mark Reardon, I say, is the best radio talk show host in town. I mean, first off,
really good.
He's really good. He knows everybody, and he asks great questions. But occasionally, he comes across a little bit, I don't know. And here's what he said. I mean, first off, I do listen. He does this thing called the Friday Roundtable where they have him, and it's always Jane Duker.
Yeah, Jane's on there a lot.
On there a lot, and he rotates other guests. He went off on Mark McCluskey, okay? And he said that he would never interview Mark McCluskey because Mark was not a serious candidate for Senate. And you know what? I mean, we call Mark McCluskey from time to let me get the guy's name out. Mark McCluskey from time to time. We had him on the air Friday, and he dropped some news on Friday.
Yep.
Okay, him and his wife went to every single county in the state of Missouri, okay?
Yep.
And not only that, he talked about when they started their campaign, they bought a brand new vehicle, some kind of an SUV, don't know what it was. And I think by the time the campaign was over, I think he told me it had like 118,000 miles. Now, Let me tell you something. I drive a lot, okay? To put over 100,000 miles on a car in a year, if you're a over-the-road truck driver, that might be possible. And there are probably some guys that do it. But Joe, politician, 100,000 miles in a car, going to every county in the state of Missouri, I don't think you can call someone who does that not a serious candidate. Now, the flip side of the coin is, and the interesting thing for me is, and you know this very well because of what you did with Monsanto and your job with Bayer and stuff like that, rarely can you talk to a high-level person, okay?
Right.
If I tried to
you have a lot of gatekeepers that keep the media or other people away.
Right. If I tried to talk to Eric Schmidt, the chances of me actually talking to Eric Schmidt is probably slim and none. And if I wanted to talk to, name a bunch of other names. If I wanted to talk to Jay Ashcroft or stuff like that.
Or Corey Bush.
Or Corey
fill
Bush.
in the blank, right.
Right. And, I call Mark, and the crazy part with this started on the BS show when I used to do with Shelley. One morning we're talking, I don't know how we got talking about this. We're talking about Mark McCluskey and his wife. And I said to her, hey, let's see if there's a contact. We were on live on the air. I said, let's see if there's a contact phone number on his website so we can call him. So we go to the website, live on the air. I had no idea what was going to happen. I pulled up the phone on the air, dialed the number. He answers the phone. The phone number on his website for Senate was his cell phone, okay? I give the guy 100 brownie points because of the fact that he is accessible. And in the media business nowadays and in the politician business, that is done on purpose that the candidates are, for the most part, inaccessible, correct?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Because the handlers always want to get in the middle and say, well, why?
It's risk management.
Right.
Simple risk management.
Why are you calling Josh Hawley? And now the interesting part of this is, going back to Mark Reardon, is he's told the story how Josh Hawley will not come on his show.
Okay.
He'll come on 97.1 to other shows, but he will not come on Josh Hawley's show because of the fact that at one point in time, Mark Reardon asked him a tough question that he supposedly wasn't supposed to ask because one of Josh Hawley's handlers told him not to ask that question. And he asked that question, and Hawley will not talk to him anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, okay, here we go again.
Now, but do you think maybe, so first of all, what we don't know is, and Lord knows, but maybe there's something that Mark Reardon just doesn't like about Mark McCloskey. And as the guy that runs the show, maybe he's like, look, we're not going to have him on.
Well, he called him a fake candidate. I don't think he was a fake candidate. I think he was a very real candidate. And sometimes, I mean, go look at the history of some of these candidates, especially who make it into the House of Representatives. Something happens in their life where they go, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm going to run for, or it can't even, not necessarily on a federal level, could be on a local level. I mean, like, for example, Lyda Crewson. Do you know how she became involved in politics? Do you know the story behind Lyda Crewson?
Yeah, because of her husband.
Yeah, her husband was murdered.
Yeah.
And her husband was murdered. They lived in, I believe, in the Central West End at the time. And her husband was murdered, and she felt that, you know what, the crime in the city of St. Louis got out of control. I want to do something about it. So wasn't she an alderman for a while?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, for quite a while.
Right.
She represented that area. She actually represented Mark McCloskey in that area, Portland Place, right there.
That's right.
Now, hold on, Brad. 1 second though. So I don't know Mark Reardon certainly well enough to get inside of his head. But in his defense, what percentage of the vote did Mark McCloskey get?
Yeah, but once again, I'll throw it right back at you. Who cares? If you run for, if all of a sudden John Combest decide he's going to run for
God forbid.
Congressional District 3, okay, once again, see, and here's the thing that bothers me. Let's take it on the national level. Let's take it to Trump, okay? Mm-hmm. One day, Donald Trump comes down the escalator at Trump Tower, and he stands in front of a microphone and declares he's going to run for president. People go, oh, this guy, he doesn't have a chance.
They immediately dismissed him. They thought it was a publicity
stunt. He's selling some new condo system or something like that, or he's got some new TV show he's going to be doing, watch me run for president, that kind of stuff and stuff like that. And once again, he became the president of the United States, okay? And as a side note, I remember I listened to KWMU on NPR, and both locally and nationally, the day after the election. It sounded like everybody on the air at NPR, how they had just come from a funeral. I mean,
the clips of Rachel Maddow and other folks in the national media in 2016 responding.
Right.
Like, you hate to say that you like to see people cry, but if you were that mentality and you like to see people cry, those are the clips to watch.
Right, but see, now let me take this one step further, and this is not me knocking on Mark Reardon, because I've already said he's an incredible talk show host.
He's the best in the market.
Well, yes, he's the best in the market. Not only that, he talks about this all the time. He's done nothing in his life but radio. He started out at KYMC, which was the West County YMCA station out in I think they were out years ago. I went out to there to talk to the kids out there. The kids. I mean, at the time I was probably 10 years older than them. But it was on Clayton Road. It was in a house that they had. It was an interesting operation. And he talked about the fact that since he's been 15 years old, he's done nothing but radio. Okay?
Yep.
But here's the interesting thing. Who is he to declare Mark McCloskey not a serious candidate? I mean, once again, we have a situation right now where we have people who are trying to declare Donald Trump not a candidate because of the fact that, he did on January 6th, 3 years ago. Okay, once again, let the people decide.
And so if I'm, again, I love this conversation that you and I are having. I'm guessing Mark Reardon would say, well, we did let the people decide, and 97% of Republican primary voters said Mark McCloskey is not the guy. I get what you're saying, Brad. Now, also, here's a little bit of pushback. I can't stand, personally, candidates that use efforting metrics. So instead of saying, hey, I've gone out and raised X amount of dollars, I've talked to voters in every county, instead they talk about the mileage on their car. Now, instead of talking about the mileage on your car and talking about how many nights you spent away from home, talk about what you're hearing from voters. I don't care how much effort you put into your campaign. Show me how much money you've raised. Show me how many people have signed up to knock on doors on your website. Don't give me efforting metrics.
You know what? You and I are totally on exact opposites on that because of the fact that I always say, I'm the kind of guy that if I have, let's say, and this has happened to me before. Let's say I have two guys who are competing for business. I'm going to give an example. They want to put a roof on my house. Okay, that's a goofy example. Okay, and if I have company A, which is like the big dog company in town, like the John Beal kind of company. Everybody knows John Beal. He sponsors the news and the weather and stuff like that. And I have the guy who is working out of his pickup truck, and he comes to me and he says, you know what? He says, I'm up against this John Beal guy. You know what? I want to grow my company as big as John Beal's company. And you know what? I may not be the biggest company, but you know what? I bust my butt on every job. I'm on the roof pulling off your old roof, and I got my crew up there, and I'm the guy that's going to – I get it. I'm the guy that's going to take
You're going to hire the second guy.
I'm hiring the second guy. Every damn time. I'm hiring the second guy because – I am the underdog. I've lived my life as the underdog, and everything I have done in my life, people have told me, oh, you're never going to be able to do that, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'll still tell you the time when I started my traffic network, and John Beck, who at the time was the new guy in town, now he's been here for 40 years or something like that. John Beck was the new guy in town, fresh from Indianapolis, came in from he came from Kansas City. He was at KCI, a radio station in Kansas City. And I was pitching my traffic network to him, and he signed the contract in front of me and pushed it across the desk and said to me, hey, this is going to be great, but you know what? I give you 6 months till you lose your blah, blah, blah. You lose your ASSS, okay? And I said, why is that? He says, you're a jock. You're a traffic reporter. You don't know how to sell radio. You don't know anything about selling radio.
So he did you a favor. Like he provided you some inspiration and somebody to prove wrong.
Him and Don Miller. Don Miller made on the air made a crack about me that I was going into business and I was going to use this new high-tech tool to report traffic reports. Don Miller, the guy in the helicopter. And you know what that high-tech tool was?
What's that?
The LMD. You know what the LMD was?
No, I don't.
The large metal desk. He said I was going to sit behind a large metal desk and do traffic. And I thought to myself, I'll prove that MF wrong,
And you did. And you did. And it's a victory from what people anticipated as being deceit.
But
now, Brad, let's say Mark McCloskey got elected. He won the Republican primary. He beat the hood ornament that was known as Trudy Bush Valentine. Do you think today, in January 2024, you wanted to get Senator Mark McCloskey on the phone to discuss his testosterone replacement therapy bill? Do you think you could get him on the phone immediately?
I do.
Okay.
I really do.
I say you absolutely couldn't. And it doesn't matter that you've known him a long time, because you would call him and his staff would say, you're not answering. Mark, when you're in a Senate hearing at 8 a.m. Eastern time, you're not going to pick up a call from Brad Hildebrand.
I'm not
Tell
saying,
him to call our office.
Once again, I'm saying if he's like in, once again, if he's doing his duty, if he's in a Senate hearing, he's not going to answer my phone. But the point being is that I have called Mark on several occasions where he has been doing something or on another phone call or something like that, and he always calls me back.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I've been on the phone when you've called him, and he was doing something else, and he has called you back.
He calls me back.
So now let's get a little bit deeper here. Is what you're saying is part of your affinity for Mark McCloskey the fact that you identify with him?
No, not necessarily, because I've told you this to a certain extent. I think what he did was him and his wife. They did was wrong. They brought a lot of bad publicity to gun owners. A lot of bad publicity because of what they did.
Bad trigger discipline.
Right. The whole thing with what they did with their weapons, they're aiming them at people. That was absolutely positively wrong.
But you like his accessibility.
No, I don't like the fact that once again he actually said it on this very show. I don't know, with you, maybe with Shelley, where he said. He said Kim Gardner had 6,000 cases in front of her, murder cases, rape, armed robbery, and she leapfrogged our case to the front. Okay? Yeah. Once again, I agree with them to the point where
I do too.
Why didn't it take 5 or 6 years for her to get to the bottom of the caseload, to go after Mark McCloskey and his wife, because of the fact that she was out to get him politically. She was out to torpedo him and do whatever
No
she
question.
can
Of course she was.
because he's a rich white guy in a rich white neighborhood who a bunch of black people, broke into his...
And he's wearing a pink polo, which is an offense on so many levels.
Only you would say that, John.
So here's the thing. The other great thing is, that McCloskey's been on I'm sure he's been on Mark Cox's show. I'm sure Mark would have him on. It's not like he's banned from the station. It's just Reardon's like, no, I'm not dealing with him.
Yeah, that was it. And see, I think that's, once again, I gave all the platitudes to Mark Reardon. I think he's the best guy in St. Louis. He's an excellent talk show host. For the most part, he is very, very fair, provides both sides of the thing. When he does his Friday roundtable, he's got a bunch of Democrats on there all the time.
Yeah, I think anybody that listens to him knows that he's reasonable. So do you think part of it might be an ego thing?
I don't know. I should call him and ask him. I've got his number. Here's what I'm going to do. When I get off there and I'll chop the show up, I'll send him the link to this segment and I'll say, hey, Mark, take a listen. You were our 20-minute segment this morning on my show. And he can't come on the air here because of the fact, or maybe he can.
Right,
I don't know.
We wouldn't expect him to.
Right, because of the fact he's got the contract with 97.1 and blah, 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 which is interesting because they made news yesterday. We'll talk about that next break. It's 7:41.